Christopher Pyne joins us now. You must be thinking, Chris, good morning. Where is the love?
Karl, I haven't sent any flowers or chocolates to Senator Lazarus, so I hope nobody's sending them to him in my name. I have sent him a Christmas card, so I hope he won't be offended by that, but it was sent before he said he didn't want any SMSs. But then he did run into another journalist later in the day and say that he was happy to get as many SMSs as I ever wanted to send him, so I'm as confused as the next bloke,
It's like an episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. I mean,
Well, it's not. That's the thing. You see, it's too important.
I know.
This
but the way he
reform
was
is too
treating
important.
you, let's get on to that. The way he was treating you, he's a newly minted senator with virtually no experience. He was mocking you.
Well, that's a matter for Senator Lazarus. I intend to have a great relationship with him, as I intend to have with all the crossbenchers. Today we'll introduce a new higher education reform bill which picks up a lot of the issues that have been raised by the crossbenchers. None by Labor, of course, or the Greens, because they're just saying no. They're not part of the conversation at all. And as Churchill said, this isn't the beginning of the end. This is the end of the beginning, Karl, and we'll do it again next year in February.
OK, whose fault was it that the bill was rejected?
Well, the crossbenchers, Labor and the Greens, didn't vote for it. 4 of the crossbenchers did, and I'd like to thank Senators Muir, Madigan, Lyon, Helm and Day for their support. But the government obviously believed strongly in it, and we have campaigned very hard for it, and I'll continue to do so, because great reform takes time. But there's an inevitability about it, and it will happen, because it's necessary for our universities and for our students.
Ultimately, you've got massive dramas, as you know, in the Senate getting any bill passed. Do you think that these senators are holding the country to ransom at the moment? Are they blackmailing the country?
Well, there was a Telegraph poll a couple of weeks ago which said that 66% of people thought the Senate was being obstructionist and would welcome an election to change that. We're obviously not going to do that, but the message to the Senate is be cooperative and work with the government. I'd love to work with the crossbenchers. I had a great relationship with them. I think in February, when we debate this again, I'm happy to wipe the slate clean. And as I see this as round 2, as I said to Clive Palmer a few months ago, if it loses the first time, Clive, it'll be like losing the first test of a 5-test series. So I'm not going away, Karl.
They are blackmailing in a way, though, aren't they?
I certainly wouldn't say that. No, I don't believe that's the case.
You wouldn't say that? I think the PM said something like that yesterday. This is.
I think he might have.
This is a form of blackmail, and this is not something that any sensible, mature government can submit itself to.
Well, I think he was saying that senators on the crossbench shouldn't link one issue to all the other issues. Now, voting no to everything in the Senate because you can't have your way on one particular thing is, I think the Prime Minister was saying, is not the way to negotiate with the government or with anybody. But you know, each crossbench has got to make their own decision, and they're answerable to the electorate when they face re-election.
The reality is, I mean, let's face it, you'd much rather a much more cooperative Senate. Why don't you just double disillusion, get on with it, and let the country get on with it? Man up and double disillusion.
Because the public elected a government at the end of 2013 to get on and do the job. We've had a great year. We've abolished the carbon tax, the mining tax, stopped the boats.
It's ground to a halt. All these things, even last night, is an example of things ground to a halt.
Not really. We've settled 3 free trade agreements. Confidence, business confidence, consumer confidence are on the rise. The economy is being repaired.
Anything related to the budget. Even this morning in The Australian, Chris, it reports that the backbench MPs have blocked the $20 billion Medical Research Future Fund amid concerns over the way their leaders are communicating economic strategy. The way you are communicating economic strategy, not even your own party has any kind of faith in your arguments for existing reforms.
Well, 75% of the budget is through. The Economics Committee that chose to put the Medical Research Future Fund legislation off for more consideration, that's their role. That's what backbench committees are supposed to do. They're supposed to look at legislation and say, no, we'd like more time, or yes, we're happy with this. So there's nothing in the least bit embarrassing about that.
Here's the issue. You can't get your own policy through the Senate, and yes, it's hostile, but you can't even get your own policy through your own people. let alone the Senate.
No, that's not right, Karl. That's the job of the backbench committees, is to scrutinise legislation before it's introduced. So they're just doing their job. And I'm not in the least bit dismayed by the defeat in the Senate 33-31, with 4 crossbenchers voting for the government. I'm not dismayed about that. My view is that's democracy. That's what the people gave us in the election, and I will work with that. And this morning, I'm bouncing back, putting up a new reform bill. I'll be back again in February with that debate, and I'm looking forward to trying to get the crossbenchers to support it.
Well, you do bounce back, and you've got to woo Clive Palmer. Just before we go, quickly, how are you going to woo Clive Palmer over the Christmas break?
Well, I get along very well with Clive Palmer. I'm looking forward to more meetings with Clive Palmer.
Dinosaurs?
Now, Karl, don't try and lead me astray.
What about model dinosaurs?
No, I'm not. I have a very good relationship with Clive, and I intend to continue that.
Good on you, Chris. Thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.